Christmas is around the corner, and today is the last episode of my show in 2022. And today I have a very special guest, an artist and also an illustrator. So guys, please welcome my guest, JP Mavinga. Welcome to the show. JP, welcome to the show.
Thank you. That was a great introduction.
I like it. I'm happy that you like because each guest got us a song only for him. So this is song only for you. Every episode there is a new song for a new guest.
This is
So
the
let's
first
talk about
time.
your. Let's talk about art and talent. No, now today you are a professional illustrator, designer. But let me know something about your days before to become professional, because an artist too. I'm a writer, a musician, and when I was a kid I started to like singing and writing, and I discovered that music can be one of my future job at that time. So what is the moments in your life that you discover your talent and you start to think about to create a job with your talent?
I guess for me, there was many stages. It wasn't once, but the final time I was about 16, and many pieces of interest and skills came together. And then I saw a few things that kind of changed my attention. So at that time, I was really focused on basketball. I was an athlete, and I was good, but not good enough. And so at that time, I had worked really hard, and I started to see that because I became tall very young, that I began to see that everybody also was caught up and stronger and faster and better. But I was always drawing and not really trying and focusing. But the art teacher in the school wanted me in her class. But I was like, there's nothing for me. But I could do things nobody in her class could do, and I never took the class. And so that summer, I remember a friend gave me a comic book, and I looked at it and I said, this is, there's things here I cannot do, but there's things here and I know I can do this, and I like it. And the book that really changed everything for me was Ghost in the Shell, because I had also had an interest in science and technology. I enjoyed really speculating about science in the future, and that story just had all my interests, spirituality as well, the emergence of consciousness. And I was never the same. After that, I wanted to do comics. So I went from my interests were more in science. I love biology, I liked engineering, and then I liked sports. And once I saw those things, everything changed. I wanted to develop my art skill at that time.
Awesome. Speaking of some of your artwork, if you want, because I read only right now your message on Facebook. If you can send me via Messenger, then I can share during the show some of your pictures if you want.
Okay.
Meanwhile, we continue the conversation, but just to have also some of your artwork to talk about also during the show. But
okay.
Let's move for your career. And so after this moment, what is your first ever job as a professional artist?
Ooh, I had so before I went to school, I had some clients that were local. And so I did a concept for like a camp, a children's camp. So really it was like a architecture, a drawing. And I had another client who was making cups, for coffee. But he wanted a portrait of writers, authors, famous writers, in history. And so I was drawing the portrait and they would print it on the cup. So right before school, I was doing things like that. And actually, I didn't need any other job after a while, but just doing that type of work. But my first sort of mainstream recognizable was for DC Comics. And I actually just messaged you a cover that was published. So I went to my first convention in the beginning of 2000, and I showed my portfolio, and the editor was like, "Yeah, we'll work with you." So I did a story based on Harley Quinn for DC Comics. The story was never published, but later on I did the cover work, and so that was the first thing that was actually published in 2003, I think.
Is this
So that's
one?
it's the black and white version. I don't have a file of the color. They never really sent it to me, but it's out there. You can find it. Issue 111.
And tell me something more about this, because I think it's really you got immediately the feeling of the character, no? When I watch this, when I see this artwork, no? We see Robin, the sadness of Robin, and also something that happened in the girl in the background. So tell me something about the story. There was.
I don't remember. I know I read the script, and I know someone died, I think. But I had a different layout, a very different layout that was very dynamic, and I was working on it. And I was drawing, and they needed it quickly. And I was drawing, and the editors, they called me and they said, "I'm sorry, the design you are doing right now, we already have a cover just like that. So we need you to do another one." And so they sent me this layout, and I was doing it. And while I was putting finishing the ink, they have a service called FedEx that picks up the art. The person was knocking on the door because it had to go to the office. And so, yeah, I remember working on it. I just don't really remember the details of it. I mean, it was 19 years ago. So,
For example, I can't remember each characters of each novel that I did, no? Because when you do many stories, because I'm a writer, no, and I can't remember each character, so each little details or side story of each novel that I did, because it's difficult to remember everything when you do many stuff in your career. No, remember each name of each sidekick character in the story, or each story behind the artwork. Obviously, it's not easy. Tell me something about because I searched something about you on the web. I saw that you work with many important franchise and toy company, for example, like McFarlane Toys. Tell me something about it.
Well, I did a lot of things at McFarlane. In fact, when it comes to jobs that I had, that one was probably the most fun. They hired me at that time because they were trying to do like some robots or something like that, and they needed someone that could draw the characters, but also in a more dimensional way, if that makes sense. In other words, draw it so someone sculpting can understand, more 3D look. And so I was actually at the time working as a web developer writing code. And I got a call and they asked me, if I was interested. So yeah, that would be cool, really cool. Because I wanted to do more drawing. And they asked me what kind of salary I wanted. I told them, and they were like, "Great, 2 weeks, come up." And so that's how I started there. It was really, really cool. My job was mostly just draw cool stuff. That's all they said, draw cool stuff. and met Todd, who interesting as a character, um, and a lot of really really amazing people that work there. The connection was made actually by a friend of mine who we had gone to art school together. Um, so he knew me, he knew my skill, he recommended me to the place. When I got there, I met another friend who had also known at school. So it was very comfortable as far as almost being around people But I never really, I'm still not really a toy collector. I never collected toys. For me, it kind of satisfied the interest I had in design and creating products and solving problems. I just treated it, I wouldn't say engineering, but I used that kind of mentality, and I learned a lot about plastics, manufacturing, and how they deal with different types of plastics for articulation, and we designed that. So I really enjoyed that work.
I like how you can do something really different, because if we compare this art that I share right now and the previous one with Robin, we got two different styles, two different atmospheres. I like how you are a versatile artist. No, I like that you can explore different worlds. What is the way to do that? Because sometimes the problem for an artist is stay in the same style, in the same word, in the same line. Also as a musician, as a writer, and also
Yeah.
as an illustrator. What is the secret, if we can call that, to be able to do many things that are really different?
I don't know if there's a secret. I think for me, I'm always curious. The tool, the pencil, the pen, digital or whatever. The tool is like a way of expressing the idea, and so what's important is the idea. And sometimes a different tool, because your hand does not work the same way with a different tool, it causes you to make a different mistake or a different mark that inspires new ideas or a new way of thinking. But most importantly, I think, is the curiosity and just being open-minded to whatever it is. Many of the challenges I had at McFarlane, I had never seen before. I was really into story and storytelling and comic books, and to draw a static figure and trying to solve these kind of problems with the pieces and design, and it was new, and what was exciting was discovery, not really how the drawing looked or the style. It was about discovering the possibilities of the pieces.
Tell me something about this one.
So that was for the movie Prince of Persia. Some people from Disney approached McFarlane. They wanted to do that kind of toys in the McFarlane style for the movie. The movie obviously was based on the video game. So that project came to me. I was I think the only designer in-house at that time. So I was working on it. And that is the Destin character, which is Jake Gyllenhaal. So this action figure actually has I sent a picture. It has a mechanism in the arms. So there's a spring where if you pull the spring back, the figure would strike with the sword. Yeah, that's the explanation. So my boss kind of showed me how these things work, and so I had to draw these kind of, combining the figure drawing with like a diagram to explain the simple machine, if you will. So in a way, it's like a combining different skills and interests. I had done, drafting, like in the old days, for machine parts and stuff like that. Before CAD, they would do drafting. So I had done that in high school. Anyway, just different skills that combine to make something like that.
And for this one, to get the good likeness, you watch the show to understand how to create this figure.
Yeah, they sent us pictures from the actor in the costume. So they took them at the studio, and every angle of the actor, all the details of the costume. Now this one is drawn in such a way that I think the figure is small, so the details were considered for that size. It wasn't like a statue. This was for an action figure.
Cool. So let's see other that I have. This one you saw before. This this is a dragon. Tell me something about
Yeah.
this dragon.
So McFarlane was known for, they had done a series of dragons, like figures that you could buy, toys, very collectible. And that was just a design that they had asked me to do, and it wasn't for the entire dragon, just sections of the dragon. So the sections that are finished with the pencil are the sections that was my design, and the other section was another design. If that makes sense. I was just designing components for the figure.
This is another another thing is in another style. So once again, if you compare this one and this one, looks like to see three different artists, no? Also the previous one, with the character. So you are able really. This is not it's easy find an artist able to do that, because like to see three different artists inside of you, no?
In a way, yeah. I mean, I when I approached this job, it was like I felt that I was hired to think and to solve a problem. And each assignment was different, and sometimes I used a different tool, and I didn't really think about it in terms of style. I was just trying to draw in the way that finds the answer. So for me, it doesn't feel that different. But there was a period of time before those pieces where I only drew with a pen, a ballpoint pen.
Wow.
And so the way my art looked was very, very determined by the pen. And then I got tired of it and I went back to pencil. So that's what was going on
I
here.
understand that, because actually, just for when I was a kid, I was a little bit good to drawing. But at that time, my father was he didn't want to be an artist kid, no. So because my art teachers told me at the time, you can do an academy for art, but my father was against that. Because of that, drawing still also today just a little hobby when I have the time. For example, in this time I do some shorts to drawing, and everything that I did to drawing as a hobby was I prefer every time the pen than the pencil. I don't know why. Looks like
Yeah.
more easy to drawing with the pen than the pencil. So I understand what do you mean about it. Then when you start to use the pen, you prefer stay with the pen, no? Because I felt that a little bit also in my when I drawing just for fun, no? Because I'm not a because my as an artist, my life goes to the music before later to the writing, and now also as a YouTuber. So drawing still just a side, something that I do sometimes, but really, really amateur, no, not really. But because I think that the life of everybody, the direction is you got many influence, especially with your choices. Because if you choose an art, you can do it in the same time to art. No, you need to do some choices in your life as an artist. As you mentioned before, that when you start with a sport and then you move to art, no, you can do follow many passions at the same time. Become difficult, no? What do you think?
I mean, everybody's life, I guess, is different. For me, I was always, I mean, today I still follow sports. I play when I can. I love cars. I follow cars also. Um, I love literature. I love many things. But when I felt, and maybe this is what makes a person an artist or a musician, whatever, when I felt I wanted to express myself, that thing consumed most of my time. So when I was young, it was very young, it was like science. I loved science. When I was a teenager, it was sports, it was basketball, still science, but sports. When I switched to drawing, I left basketball almost completely. And at that time, my activity, physical activity, was martial arts. And so, other than when I wasn't practicing, the moves, this was a kung fu system that we were taught. I was drawing all the time. So for me, yeah, there's many paths, but once something captivates my attention, it takes most of the space and the time, And even within art, like I was saying, when I finished university, I got I think my art was stagnant and I was kind of bored and maybe having a hard time. So that's when I changed to the pen as opposed to the pencil. And I did that for 4, maybe 5 years before the feeling of the pen just and then I went back to the pencil. So and that's just for drawing. And at that time, when I got to, I always colored in Photoshop a little bit, but when I got to McFarlane, they didn't give me a desk to draw. It was just a computer. And so I had to learn to draw digitally, And I did that for a few months until they ordered a table and I went back to paper. So,
And today you work only digitally or you still work also on paper?
it's a mixed. In the last 2 years, it's like 90% digital. Before that, it was really 50-50. Because
what is your feeling about this two-way to do art? Because also in the music, you can use piano, but you can use synthesizer, computers, and many devices to compose music digitally also, no? It's possible also to do that. And sometimes a good way to do the pre-production for an album, for example, to put all instruments digitally, so electronic guitar, electronic drum, to create the orchestration for the song, and works really well. With only the piano, you can do that. You need to have also the other guys also in the pre-production to create also the song, speaking of the dressing of the song. But speaking of drawing, what is the difference to use digitally and also on paper? And also, what is your feeling about it, about this two-way?
I when learning to draw, like when you're starting when you're young, there, in my view, a few things are happening within the body and the mind. So in the context of the mind, it doesn't matter the tool. You just need to be able to make the mark that communicates the idea. For the body, in my opinion, you also learn reflexes, And like a sport. If you play tennis, if you have a racket made of wood versus carbon fiber, your reflex will be different. You see what I'm saying? Because the tool is different. Digital, you're drawing on glass. It's smooth. If that's all you know, it's fine. But paper has friction and resistance, right? And a pencil has more friction than a pen, the ballpoint pen, right? So it's a different feeling and a different speed. The things that are unconscious to within your hand are part of your process. And so I find that if someone learns on paper and they immediately go to digital, the skill is there, but maybe they cannot transmit it because the reflexes are incorrect. And to me, that's the main issue within the human. outwardly, paper as a material, the resolution, even though we cannot see, goes to the atom. So from the atom, you have the molecules, which compose the fiber of the paper and the texture of the paper, and then the whatever instrument affects the texture of the paper. And that's what we see. But on a digital, you have pixels, obviously. So when you zoom in, there's a limit. Okay. So in digital, technically, you're just creating a mosaic, a very fine mosaic, but a mosaic. And so fundamentally, it is a different principle there if you zoom in enough. From an application perspective, as the technology gets better, there's not much difference because now, brushes can be random. It can look very, very similar. And as long as you're printing within the scope of the resolution, you're not going to tell the difference. But, when you draw a drawing, as long as you're working, you see the whole drawing, a perspective, for example. Whereas digital, you can always zoom in and then you don't see the rest of the drawing. It's gone.
Yeah.
So your mind suddenly begins to focus on aspects of an illustration without considering the rest. So especially for students, the digital can be in a way distracting because now you have a drawing where each section is done well, but they don't fit because you weren't looking at them together while drawing. So you have to practice zooming in, zooming out, zooming in, zooming out. But you can't do that with paper. You don't do this with paper.
Yeah.
And so some behaviors are different. And, for an artist, I say whatever's better, whatever's more successful, If I was teaching students, I would teach with paper because digital is too easy to cheat. That's all,
Yes, also because I think that also in any type of art, when you work in a song, you need to stay focused on also not only the details but also in the full concept about your artwork or your music, your song, your book. And I understand what do you mean when with the digitally you lost a little bit the total point of view for the details because you can when you zoom you can see everything, no, and you can do some mistake. For example, it looks like to do a song to write a line for the lyrics and forget the rest of the lyrics, no, something similar.
Yeah, I mean, even a piano versus a keyboard. And a little bit of music. I was not good, but a little bit, right? When you play a keyboard, the note is predictable and pure every time, even if there's pressure controlled, But a piano, if you really hit the piano, the wood vibrates, the room vibrates.
Yes.
There's yeah, and that
Also,
can be part of the composition.
yes, especially the expression, no, because and also because however you can do an awesome electronic version, an awesome sequence of the piano, so realistic, but will not the same like a real piano because there is something different, more natural, more looks like the real instrument, like a piano, guitar, because they play also other instruments. Looks like they have a real life, no? And something digitally is like a photo of the real life. In the music, is a little bit. So, but in the same time, digitally you can create with the keyboards, with the synthesizer, this stuff. You can do new sounds, no, that you can do with normal instruments. And this is another interesting way to the creativity to do something to do, because I like something that we call the pad. The pad is the piano, the keyboard synthesizer sound in the background, no. And I like this stuff. Put this stuff along with drum, and you are able also to create the drum and bass part. So I think if you know music, you need to know before, like to draw with paper. The same thing, in my opinion. You need to learn with the normal with the acoustic instrument, and then you can go to the digital. You can do something really cool. But now we move. I won't move another of your artwork. Let's see. I won't share other of your. We can start with this one. Tell me something about this.
So this was a concept for a statue, Jango Fett from the Star Wars prequels. And so this is one of the early projects I did for Sideshow Collectibles. And I just did, they had already a Boba Fett piece, similar, on an angled surface, and the character was standing. So they wanted to make a companion piece with Jango Fett. And so, yeah, I did initially I just did the character and the base, and then they asked me, well, this base looks complicated. How does it work? Like, what's the, and so I drew all the kind of details, like this is, and it's just an invented object that is designed to look like a piece of technology from Star Wars. And the process, you asked me digital or whatever. At this time, all the lines were drawn on paper with a pencil, just, and the color is digital. Obviously, collaging everything together was digital, and the typing is so. All the rendering and the painting on the character digital, but the lines were pencil.
And what is the process to do that? After you drawing on paper, you scanning to the on okay, and then use the digital.
Yeah, in a piece like this, there were layers. So the character was on one piece of paper, and the base was on another piece of paper. And then when they asked me to do these exploded views, I made photocopies and then put another piece of paper and use a light box to draw what's on underneath the other side. And so the front angle is the same one copied, but the back angle, I had to redraw something new to come up with that. So it's, this stuff is left from my interest when I wanted to be, a car designer, product designer, that kind of stuff. I still have some of those skills, and so I use it to create something that is totally fiction, but fits the need for the statue design.
Okay, for a few seconds I was frozen, only me, but I have another device to control everything, but you still on air, so what goes well also without me, because I saw me like a frozen guy like that. Let's move for another of your artwork, because I think it's cool to see this one is really cool. Tell me something about, because you can see actually a scene right here, no?
Yeah, so this was a comic book page. So this was done, I think, around 2006, I believe. There's a funny story here. So at that time, I was still trying to, because I had done work for DC, but I didn't have any more work from them, and it really wasn't a good fit. Like I didn't enjoy Batman and stuff like that. The tights, it wasn't. So I did this and I sent it to a few companies, and Top Cow called me back. But the funny thing was, they called me the day that I was moving. Like, I had my car and everything, everything full. I was leaving, and I wasn't going to be able to draw again for about 3 weeks. And then I had to start another job. And so I told them, I was like, I could try. I don't, they wanted me to there was a book called Freshman. They wanted me to try to get to basically try out to get that job. And I did some stuff, but I really didn't finish, and I couldn't do it. But still, this page, got me some work. I couldn't find the rest of them, but I found that page. And so it was just storytelling. But this character is one of my own characters.
There is a question for you for one of the fans of my channel. Di Cameron says, "Good evening, JP. I'm a Franzetta style illustrator. Your work seems unique. Who inspired you?"
Oh, I don't think my work is that unique, but my inspirations are Masamune Shirow, who did Ghost in the Shell, Appleseed, Dominion, Orion, and some other kind of work. But I think Ghost in the Shell is the most famous work. Um, Travis Charest was an American art. He's an American artist. He's famous for Wildcats, but also Meta Barons in Europe. Um, Michael Turner. Actually, I worked on statues for Michael Turner's properties, Fathom and Soulfire, while at Sideshow. Michael Turner he died young in 2008. He was only like, I think 37, but really influential comic book artist. I like Frazetta. I look at his compositions a lot, and I had a chance to go to the museum in Pennsylvania to see his painting. He's just amazing. But I think those are my three biggest influences. But I've been influenced by a lot of people. You know, whoever I've looked at. I usually have a period of time where I observe an artist and I really like their work, and then absorb it a little bit and move on. But I don't know that I'm that unique. You know, there's so many artists doing so much amazing work, and it's just we're all gonna be a little bit different. But I appreciate the question, certainly.
Let's talk about this one.
So the girl in the previous, the comic book page, it's the same character. At that time, I think I had just finished school and I was practicing color, I think, just trying out ways to do it. So the sketch was a very simple line drawing, and then I painted. This is some of my first digital work, trying to kind of understand how to use Photoshop and but yeah, I wanted also something that would make like a good cover kind of image, and I use this in my portfolio for a long time. And I haven't seen it in years, but when you asked me about talking about my career overall, I was like, this would be a good one to include just because I did it. I mean,
It's absolutely beautiful. I like it.
thank you.
Also
18
because,
years ago. It's yeah. So again, different style as you can see.
and also
Uh,
this one is another different style. This one.
so yeah, this is one of the ones I didn't include many, but this is one of the ones that was done in ballpoint pen. So this was at McFarlane, probably my first month or two there, I think, is when that was done. Yeah, just a weird, creepy character.
Super cool. I like how you can change different world. This is one that we saw before in different style and type of atmosphere. Tell me something about this. This I think is Terminator, I believe.
Correct. Yeah. So I did this before I worked at Sideshow. They invited me there to be a guest artist, and so this was just they asked me to draw it, so I drew it, and I had never done any work like statues and stuff like that, so I wasn't sure what they were asking me to do, and I asked, like, "You want me to draw this?" I was like, "Yeah, draw it." And I was like, "Are you sure? You want me to draw everything, like just clearly?" And then, yeah, as clear as possible. And I was like, "Okay." So, um, I was not familiar with the Terminator work, so it took a long time. But yeah, that design is more complex than we realize when you go to draw it. But yeah.
Yes, many details also for the mechanism and this stuff. It's not easy, I think. Follow each details and also in the same time be accurate with the movie because I think when you have a reference with something that is also in real in another art like movie is we got more what is your feeling, because with two different way, do something that is related or something brand new? Which do you prefer? Because when you do something like this one, you need to follow some rules to create something that is familiar for everyone. When you do something unique and original, you have more freedom, no?
Yeah, no, I always enjoy doing my personal work, my ideas always first. But a lot of time, I mean, you work for clients. That's the reality of the industry. And so for that Terminator, I did a lot of research. I had a lot of images. They have made a life size, I think, Terminator that was when you go to Sideshow, there's all these figures everywhere, life size, half size, every scale. And so there was one near, I think, the receptionist office that I looked at, and I had other representations. So I just took the time to do it. It was just like research. I mean, we call it art because it's using the same materials, but that Terminator drawing, and to me, it's not really art. It's an expression for communicating for the manufacturing process. It's very technical, you know. Art is something more from your heart to your hand, if you will.
Yes, I understand that, because I did also something for other people as a musician in the past. I did some soundtrack, this stuff, no, music for short movie. At the time, the director wants something that maybe wasn't to me the good way to create a music. But when you got a job, you need to follow the desire of your
Right.
director at the time. But let's move for another things. There's another things different. Speaking of your style, tell me something about it.
So this was also for that movie, Prince of Persia. And so this was a toy design that was included in, there's an overall play set, and this was one section that fits on top. And I think it opens and the character falls through, and all these things fit together. Again, I don't remember everything, but when we were designing this, we had the script for the movie and certain product categories that the movie people wanted, but also the stores. So I think we were working with, like, I could be wrong, like Walmart, Target, and there was a European distributor. And so they had certain toys for certain prices at certain sizes of the box and these designs. So I looked at movie set and then the dimension they want for the toy, and I tried to make a toy based on a movie set. And that was the result there. Yeah.
When you do your art, in general, you listen music. For example, as a writer, I listen music. Or in general, actually, I create a playlist that is basically the soundtrack of my story. Or
Yes.
also when I edit some video that is not really complicated, I listen music. So I use music many times when I'm working with something artistic. You prefer listen something, or you prefer the silence, or listen podcast? What is your perfect ambient to do art?
Mixture. So when I start something, I usually find music that fits the emotion of the idea, but I really need to concentrate. So usually the music is with no words, just the instrumentation, because the words become distracting. Sometimes if something is really, really difficult, like a complicated drawing, a silence is the
Mm.
best. Once I'm working, like once I put down the main components of the idea, it's almost like I just have to fill the volume. And so at that point, anything is fine. A movie, some people talking, like I can even have a conversation if what's remaining doesn't require that much thought, it just has to be done correctly. I can talk to someone in the room, it's fine.
What is your your feelings, your relation with the art inside of you. I try to explain better this concept. Also, because remember, I'm Italian and my English a little bit weird because I learn English with wrestling, so you can understand how good is my English. But back on track. When,
Huh?
for example, as an artist, to me, it's difficult to stop myself. No, I'm able to work also 12 hours by day for YouTube or for music or for other stuff. It's difficult sometimes, many times the art take over everything because it's impossible to stop. No, this is the way that I got it. Sometimes it's a problem because if you have a girlfriend, maybe she's not really happy that you have to pass too many time to working on in your heart. No, what
Yeah.
is your process? Your how much you work, and also you are able to stop yourself. Or it's not easy because it's also your job, but also your passion, and also is another word. Because when you're drawing or you're writing or you do a video, you do something, you follow this dimension of your creation, and you forget a little bit also the reality around. No, so what is your situation about it?
Well, once I realized that I was going to do this, I was 16, and my vision has been the same since. I mean, it's grown, it's evolved, it's gotten more mature, more detailed, but I felt it at 16 with this intensity. And I also realized that I had always been drawing since I was 4 years old. I always drew, always. Um, so as I went to school and learned and grew and all this stuff, and it wasn't always that I was able to work professionally and make money as an artist. In the beginning, it was, I did whatever I could, but I was always creating and drawing. And if I didn't do it, I I felt maybe uh, lost or out of balance, if you will. Art is not for me. It's not my job. Art is my lifestyle, and if my skill has reached a point, it allows me to use to continue to fund the lifestyle, so I can do it to the maximum amount. That's my relationship to that. I've had other jobs. Like I said, I was a web developer for a while, writing code. Um, I was when I finished school, I was managing, a place. People come and rent, and I was the manager. So they give me the rent, and I give it to the company, and I tell them where they can go. So I needed money. I worked at a hotel in the security where people park their cars, and I give them a ticket where they park their car, and then I did that job part time while I was developing my career in drawing. So the art is always there. In a way, it's not a job; it's just the lifestyle. It's like I eat, I drink water, I breathe, and I draw. It's the same continuum, and somehow I have to make money. You know, if somebody would pay you to breathe, you would take it, right?
Yeah.
And that is the thing. And so yeah, it can be consuming because obviously you know there's relationships and family that from a human perspective is more important than what I'm doing with my hands. But my mind is always working. The challenge I have is that um, if if I live like everyone else, so I get up in the morning and I'm not that creative during the day. Everything starts to work about 9 to midnight, and that's when you're supposed to go to sleep. So usually I work during the night and I sleep sometime in the morning or during the day. It's more productive and more successful. I have
We are on the same page for that because I live in the, for example, now as 3 a.m. and 49 in Italy, but to me it's normal
Wow.
because it's the best moment to me to do something, no? Also because I have two channels, no? This one is a channel of toys, art, and action figures, this stuff, movie, music. The other one is about only about wrestling, and both channel have a U.S. audience. So I have no problem with jet lag if I will go to US because I'm scheduled with US time. But also before to be a YouTuber, as a writer, as a musician, I work at also in the night. I'm a night guy, and I sleep in the
Ah,
day. So in general, my day start. I wake up 4 p.m. or 7 p.m. No, sorry, 4 p.m. or 5 p.m. And I'm really slow in the beginning. When I wake up, I go outside with my pug, a little dog. But when I start, it's impossible to stop myself. I can work from 6 p.m. to 7 a.m. No, because and in the night I'm like a volcano, no.
yeah, yeah. That's it might be the darkness or the silence. I don't know, but it is something I discovered in that same period when I was about 16. I remember I would work all night, be drawing all night, and then go to school in the morning and just sleep in class. And the teacher was like, "What's wrong?" I was drawing to.
Yes, wake up in the morning was to me is a nightmare. In the morning, wake up in the morning. I try to escape. Sometimes I have something to do in the morning. I say, "Oh no, this is horrible." Because also to be focused in the art, because the art can get a lot of yourself. The art, no, because you put all yourself in your artwork. So in your music, your art, and everything, your videos. And so you need to be fresh. Your mind need to be fresh to do something really good. No, if you don't sleep, something don't work really well.
Yeah, generally speaking, I mean, yeah, I find sometimes that there is a state where not too tired, but very tired, where the mind almost borderline awake and dreaming, but the body is still upright. I find that there's interesting work there, but after that, once you start
I
making mistakes.
understand that. I understand it because in the last novel that I completed, some chapter I did some chapter in this situation, and I wrote some chapter with closed eyes, almost dreaming. And because I don't watch the keyboard when I'm writing, I watch the screen, and I did some chapter just to closed eyes in this moment, in this borderline between dream or be awake. So it was interesting. It was the first time I did something like that, but works because you are in the line between the art and the life, and this
Yeah,
magic line.
no, that one thing I love about just being an artist is to really um, I don't know that everyone does this, but to be exploring my own mind to stay there in the deeper parts. And sometimes when I talk to people about that who are not artists, it just doesn't, like, what are you talking about? It's like, okay, well, never mind. But yeah, just to spend time in, I guess, in my own consciousness and discover what's there. It's a privilege, really.
I want to talk about it a little bit before to go to the final question, because this is, I think, there's something more to Master of the Universe inside this character.
Yeah, I was just working on a concept for Sorcerer. I've had a chance with Sideshow to work on many of these characters from these cartoons in the 80s, right? So it's the idea was the feeling that you had as a kid when you looked at them to capture that feeling again. Because if you look at the characters now, the designs are very, very simple. And so I was working with David Igo, who's an art director there, the art director at Sideshow, and really had this idea of trying to capture those characters, but as we are today as adults. So after having worked on those, this was one that I did on my own, where I just wanted to take that character to a place where I was like, I liked it, where I enjoyed it. And so the bird obviously is kind of there, but I was much more intrigued by the idea of a source with this moving fabric around her. And I was also exploring, again, my own process digitally. So as you can, so it took about 6 weeks to do, much longer than I wanted, but I'm happy. You know, this is, for me, it was very interesting to explore these characters in that they are.
Yes, I like how you the expression of the face, because looks like that she's lost, but yes, something of about sadness in the same time. It's interesting, the expression that you create for this character in the face.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I don't know, this Masters of the Universe in particular. I was a fan of like Thundercats and Silverhawks, but also this. I think it's very interesting that the cartoons were done for that time and the children at that level. But as a mythology, I think it's really interesting and beautiful. And I hope that they do something in live action to really flesh out this world, because there's a lot there. Like, she's a particularly interesting character to me. I got to
I agree. I
design.
agree. I like Monster of the Universe, so I totally agree with you. So let's move for the last question. The last
Mhm.
question is not is like a difficult question for each guest that I got so far.
Okay.
Describe yourself with just one word. Which word do you choose?
um. Hmm. I don't know. That's a really hard question. Um. Hmm. Dreamer.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And I think also because every artist is a dreamer. We become
Right.
artists also because we have a lot of dreams inside us, no?
Yeah. For sure. I think, in art, I think I always probably assume the best in people. That's my way of being, and so in a way that's the same. I always expect the best in any event, anything that I do. It doesn't turn out that way, but usually I always think it's gonna be greater than it is. So, but it keeps me positive.
Yes, it's important. Be positive. And now I move to the piano for the outro of the show. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for watching the show. If you want to know more about JP, search him on social media to watch his awesome artwork. And thank you, JP, to be on my show. It was a big pleasure discovering different side of your talent. And yes, you are unique, my friend. Thank you, guys, to enjoy the show, the last show of 2022. And don't forget, in the life, the big good step is to be a dreamer, like my guest JP. So thank
Thank
you
you.
so much. And thank you to all of you guys. Happy holidays. I see you soon in 2023 with new episodes, new guests, and I hope in the future to have you back too, also, my friend, in the show.
Thank you.
So bye bye to all of you guys. Good night.